So when we do our construction loans, if somebody already owns their land, so let's say they, got it from family a few years ago, or they've been sitting on it waiting for the right time. Now they're ready to go build that dream house. What we do for appraisal values is we actually treat your value that you're going into it as your appraisal. So there's other calculations called acquisition costs, which we do on a purchase, but we do not do that when it's owned, when you already own your land. So it's just a plain simple calculation. Hey, if that house appraises for X, that's what we're using, and that your anything underneath your borrowing, that's your gap for your equity or your down payment. So Ben, how do you guys look at that?
So we have a policy. So with land, if you've owned the property for greater than 12 months, we can allow for the appraised value to be considered for that land. However, it's in combination with the land and one of two options. It's either your total cost to build or the AV, whichever is the lesser of the two, is what we base our financing off of. So appraised value versus total cost to build are the two different aspects you're looking at. Either way, the value of the land will be considered in that. If you've owned the property for over 12 months, we can utilize the appraised value, thus a lot of times giving you more equity, especially if you owe nothing on it. If you've owned it for less than 12 months, maybe you're buying it with this new construction, we can only utilize the purchase price, even though it may be worth a lot more. The only exception to that is if you're gifted the property, okay? If you're gifted it from family. So that's the way we approach it. Just because you paid $50,000 for property last year and you owe nothing on it now, equity floats, right? It's a variable. And another thing to consider when that appraisal is conducted, vacant land, as opposed to when you put a home on it, appraises a lot differently.
Yeah.
It does depreciate that land value when you put a home on it. It's not looked at the same as it is vacant.
Yeah, that's a great point, you guys. So what Ben's saying is, think of it this way, okay? Because I do get people say, hey, do you do an appraisal on the land? Do you get appraisal on the build? That's not how the appraisers do it. Basically, the way the appraisers are looking at this is when you're finished with construction, everything's done. You turn in the keys, you're moving in, you're going to stay the first night in your house, cook breakfast in the morning, okay? When you do that, if a real estate agent was to come by and stick a sign in your yard and tell you, hey, your house is going to now sell for this, that's what that appraiser is basing their values on for both Ben and I at the time of application or beginning construction. So they're projecting forward out there saying, hey, when your house is completed, that's why the appraisers are called subject to completion. When your house is completed in today's terms, so right now with the data that's available to them, we're going to say that your house is worth X when it is finished. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's how the value is calculated, and why Ben's saying, don't expect, if your land is a beautiful piece of property and, if you're out there shopping and it would cost, $200,000 to buy, don't look at it as that's just automatically $200,000 going in your project, because it's considered because your house is being built on a beautiful piece of property, but they're looking at the finished total project, not in sections. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So
yeah, and last thing on appraisals, they're not replacement costs. Appraisals are not replacement costs. They're opinion of value based upon comparables and recent sales. Additionally to that, with pole barn homes, that can sometimes be a challenge finding comparables, specifically on pole barn homes that are on less than 10 acres. There's not as many comparables, whereas there are more so on acreages above 10 acres. That's just one thing to keep in mind. Specifically at Greenstone, if we need to have at least one comparable sale. And those can be difficult sometimes on less than 10 acres. It just depends on the area you're in. So just keeping that in mind.
How about timing? So I get a lot of customers coming to me right now talking about, hey, Jon, I want to build my house and then sell my current place.